Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Now, I started off in art, but I wanted to go into cinema and media, wanted to work in film. But if that didn't happen, I sort of had art as a backup. But in order to do that, I wanted to basically be an art teacher. In order to do that, I had to do a diploma of education. And in order to do that, I had to do a second discipline because none of the universities, aside from like the Catholic university, which wouldn't really welcome me, would recognise cinema and media as separate disciplines because I had a double major in cinema and media with drama minor. But so I went to a college, I got in, and the idea was I was going to do a fine arts course, and then I would do a dip ed, and then I'd be able to teach in primary or secondary. But there were some issues. First off, early in the semester, one of the students who was a little older, but not that old, maybe in his 30s, let me know very clearly in front of everyone that he didn't like me because I was gay and he didn't want to be in the same class as me. And that was kind of shocking. Everyone was kind of surprised. Everyone was fairly progressive and chilled, and they were kind of taken by surprise by that. And everyone's sort of on my side because I hadn't done anything. And I just sort of avoided this guy for the rest of the semester. And the problem came when we were given an art project where we had to create a collage out of 20 individual collages and put them all together on one board. Now, because there are 20 different collages, the idea was we'd all do different things. And over the course of these 20 different pieces, I engaged in some gay themes. You know, being a gay person, I used some gay images and things because that was what I wanted to do artistically. And some people had a problem with that. Basically, in the art department, everyone's art would get put up in the art department on display. And then we had a gallery, proper gallery, that would display everyone's work at the end of the year. But in the meantime, just, you know, work from throughout the year would just get put up in the halls. And no one would say anything. It was just, you know, the art department had art in the art department. But someone complained about this. Someone, now who could that have been? But it might have actually been more than him, because they actually said that it was about their religion, it offended their religious views, so they demanded that my art be taken down. And they didn't just take it down, they removed the pieces that were offensive and left part of the painting still up, so it looked like it had been vandalised, the collage, it looked like it had been destroyed. And I was, of course, upset, and other people were upset for me because they saw this and thought it had been vandalised as well. I think this happened on a Friday, so I didn't know about it until, didn't know what happened until the Monday. So I spent basically all this time thinking my art had been destroyed. And what happened was the staff had taken it down because there'd been a complaint. Someone, because it offended their religious convictions, demanded that it be taken down. Instead of just telling them, sorry, this is an art department, you're in the art department and we're going to display art. And you don't get to decide, you know, what's right or wrong based on your religion and inflict that on everyone else in society, but no one told them that apparently. And I tried to get it taken back up, I tried to get it restored, they wouldn't allow it. I got upset, I started to sort of protest, everyone sort of agreed with me, they were all on my side. And eventually I went to the local media, the leader, I went to the gay papers, MSO and those ones, and eventually went to the Herald Sun and the online papers, and it got some attention. It made them look very bad because it was outright undeniable homophobia, and it was not the first time it had happened. There had been trans people who'd done works that weren't allowed to be displayed because it in some way showed them as trans people, and just anything that was identified as gay wasn't allowed to be displayed because that was offensive to some people's religious views. And this was a problem, and I got into it. Other people got into it too, and I did have a bit of support from one of the gay papers because some of the images that I'd used from my collages were images that they had used in their advertising and in their actual pages. So they knew those had passed standards, you know, that they knew that those were not offensive, and they sort of had an interest in it because there was sort of, by default, them on trial as well, because it was their images that they knew there was nothing wrong with. So they knew there was nothing wrong with what I'd done and the art I'd used. There was nothing offensive or pornographic or anything about it, anything like that. So eventually it made them look bad, being talked about all over the place, and people coming up to me and saying, oh, I saw that article, you know, I can't believe that happened to you, I'm so sorry. People were saying to me, oh, my mum saw that and she thought that was really bad. And I'd go to the doctors, and the lady there would be like, "Oh, Stephen, I saw that article." And I'm like, "Huh? Oh." And they're like, "That's really wrong. That shouldn't have happened to you." And it was kind of interesting because I felt like I had a lot of support from people. And what eventually happened was, one day after arguing with these people on the phone on my way to class, trying to get this injustice fixed, and because I was being censored and discriminated against, someone asked me how my day was, and I said, one more thing and I'm going to myself. Can't say what I said. And one of the other students had actually attempted to commit. And we were just talking about that subject, very calmly, just normally, very matter-of-factly. And I'd said, look, honestly, I just think if your life is so bad that you don't want to live it, whether it's because of medical problems or something else, and you don't want to stay around, I really think you should have the choice to do that. And at some point, my teacher, with all the good intentions in the world, went to the other staff, and said, because she probably had to report it, said that one of the students was talking about that subject, and so what turned into concern, what went from concern with her, then got turned into, it sort of went from, he may harm himself, to he may harm someone else, to he's going to harm someone else, to he's threatened other people. And then I was literally kicked out. I was expelled from the school because I had allegedly threatened somebody, one of the other students or something, which had never happened, of course. And everyone in the class knew that hadn't happened. The teacher knew that hadn't happened. But either way, they knew they could spin that because they had to get out of this little bit of bad press. So I was kicked out. I was escorted to my locker by the security. I had to take my stuff with me because I was a threat. This is like within an hour or so. And I had to leave. And afterwards, the other students from the class came out and said, "I can't believe that happened to you. I can't believe it's happening. Are you going to come back? Are we going to see you again?" And it was just really sad. We were like crying and just upset because, it wasn't fair. It was ridiculous, and we were laughing at it as well. And I left, and I tried to fight it, but I really didn't. What was I going to do? These people were lying, and I had no one to really speak for me. There was no student body who could speak for me. I didn't qualify under any of the categories that I could have challenged it for various reasons, some discriminatory, because they didn't include what I was being discriminated against for to cover it. So I basically got some people from the LGBTQ plus community who had some experience in this, who came with me and talked to me. And basically their advice to me, which I took, which was a mistake, was, look, these people want power. Just let them think that they won, you made a mistake, you've gone to therapy, you realised what you've done was wrong, you shouldn't have said what you said. No indication ever that there was ever a real threat or anything, but just I said the wrong thing, I was inappropriate and blah, blah, blah. So I thought, fine, I will play their game because I need this, and it's not about winning and being right or wrong. I just want to get back into the class. I want this not to happen again. I want there to be an understanding about these subjects and some discernment and some context, and not just, but I knew at their heart someone had twisted it to use it against me because of the bad press. But at the same time, I knew some other people were probably genuinely concerned and didn't understand what had happened. So I thought, fine, I'll make peace. I went in, didn't work. They basically said, well, we believe you've got problems and we believe you're basically a danger and we don't believe you've changed and we're not allowing you back in our school, basically. So this wasn't a real meeting about this issue. They had decided, these two men particularly, there was a woman and two men. The two men, this was homophobia. They didn't want me there. They had decided this. They either perpetuated the lie or were happy to go along with it. So I didn't get back in, and I left that day. I walked out of the hall, and I must admit I yelled after them, told them what I thought of them. And the woman actually stayed for a bit, and she was trying to leave, but she couldn't quite turn away because she knew what I was saying was true, and it was getting to her because I know she dealt with similar things. Obviously to get to a position of command, she had to break through some glass ceilings herself. So she knew I was being discriminated against, and it wasn't fair, and they were ruining my life basically because I didn't have the money to start the course again, and I was going to lose all the fees and everything and the credits and everything for that 1 year. And in order to do it again, I wouldn't be able to afford to, so I wouldn't be able to do the degree, so I wouldn't be able to get the DPed, so I wouldn't be able to be an art teacher. So this was no longer an avenue for employment, and my backup was gone after my original sort of dream had not, happened. So it was very upsetting, very distressing, and it was all discrimination. It was all because someone's religious beliefs were put ahead my education, art, freedom, honesty. People lied to cover themselves because they were doing something wrong that they knew that they were doing, and they thought they'd get away with it. The other people that had the same thing happen to me, they didn't kick up enough of a stink. And because I had used the same, and like the people in the magazine said, we've seen this a million times, it happens to people all the time, but you're using the same art that we have in our magazine that we've created. And that just made it about them, and they actually gave me some press, and that's the only reason why I got any press and caused some problems. So otherwise it just would have gone unnoticed like all the other artists that were discriminated against, which apparently happens a lot more than people realised back then. So that's my story, and that's why I'm not an art teacher, why I lost that career option and lost that battle.